Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Not Another Whiskey podcast, coming to you live from New York.
New York, York, York.
This is one of these episodes where I made it over to New York. We're sitting in Nicholas's whiskey room right now,
We sure are.
which is nice. And while we were over here, we got a couple of guests on. We thought we'd take advantage of us being in the same room together. So we got my good friend, Mr. Dhavall Gandhi, on, who some of you may have heard of. Really good chatting with him. You had fun with him, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think it's really insightful, all the stuff that he does. Like, I think he doesn't seem to care. He's not trying to build like a brand in the way that other people think about brand building. He's trying to do something that's really magnificently memorable and beautiful and specific to whoever his customers happen to be, which is really interesting. That doesn't really come across like when we're chatting about it, but like he's really making one-offs almost on commission, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing about Dhavall, and you guys will hear this as we get into the interview. He gets pretty deep. He does, and not just with whiskey, but just everything around it, which is great to see. He's doing that with his new company.
Yeah. Here's Dhavall. It's a great interview. We hope you love it.
So good to have you on the show, Dhavall. Thanks for coming on, man.
No, thank you for having me. Good to see you both.
Yeah, Dhavall, great to meet you. I can't believe we were just saying before we started to roll that for all the circles that we've both worked in fact, we've almost crossed paths, but never actually met. And
I know.
I was just reading your story and your history behind, your journey into the whiskey business is really interesting. And I'd love it if you could share that with our listeners.
Absolutely. So, I started my career, unlike most people. I had a completely different background. I was in America, in North Carolina, and I was in management consulting. I graduated in corporate finance and economics, so was very, very far away from the world of whiskey, as you can imagine. And then, but I always enjoyed drinking whiskey, and it was at Ernst and Young, one of my managers. He used to love whiskey, so we used to always, whenever we were out for client meetings or traveling, always try different whiskeys with him. And I think we were at Kentucky for a client engagement, and we decided to go and tour all the bourbon distilleries out there. I think at that time there were around 10 or 11 that we did in a span of 3 days. And it was at Maker's Mark that I decided that this is what I want to do with my life. I don't want to sit in a boardroom working on Excel spreadsheets. I want to make whiskey, do something with my hand and something with my mind.
Yep.
So I did the next best thing, took my wife out for a nice dinner, found the best restaurant I could, and I said, I'm going to quit everything and we are going to move to Scotland. I want to learn how to make whiskey.
So after she filed for divorce, what did you do then?
She almost fell off the chair, but anyways, very, very supportive, and we decided to do that. So I remember vividly, it was a continental flight directly from Charlotte, North Carolina to Edinburgh. And here I come. And I went straight to Head Watt, of course. I applied for Head Watt and graduated with a master's degree in brewing and distilling. And then I found out very hard way that getting into blending or becoming a blender was not as easy as I thought. There are not many roles in blending. But I was pretty determined to stick around. So I started working with a company called Scottish in Newcastle back as a technical brewer. Then it was taken over by Heineken and, worked as a brewer there and in various technical roles until one fine day, there were opportunities in whiskey blending. And there were two companies that I went through the whole interview process. I got the offer, and one of them was Macallan. So joined Easter Elke's house. Macallan as the whiskey maker, and
What year
that
was
is
that?
where This was 2014.
Wow.
So late 2013, early 14.
Yep.
And this is where the fascination with sherry cask began. For me, that was one of my trip to Jerez completely changed my mind. And there were two quite distinctive moments. One was, going to Jerez for the first time, understanding about the sherry complexity, the variety of sherry casks available.
Yep.
And the other was I happened to have a chance of tasting a very old Macallan, 1927 at that time. It was completely changed my perspective on what a sherry cask whiskey could be. It was fragrant and elegant, even despite the age.
Yep.
It was very different than what we, expect all the sherry casks to be right now. And I started doing my research on sherry, and then I was approached by a company called Lakes Distillery in 2016, when by then their ex-chairman, Dr. Alan Rutherford. So he called me and he said, "Why don't you come meet us for a coffee?" Long story short, on probably in 2 days, I had a call and a job offer to come and take control of everything to do about whiskey at Lakes. So decided to move there. It was, I think, an offer that was amazing. It was carte blanche. I could go in and completely do whatever I needed to do to establish Lakes. And I think that was fascinating because there were a couple of ideas about maturation, about blending that I wanted to put into practice, how I interpreted a sherry cask whiskey to be, and that resulted in the Whiskey Maker Reserve series and also the Whiskey Maker edition. So that's how my journey started in 2021. We established Lakes. There are two platforms, and it was in a great position. I made whiskeys that it would allow it to continue. And then I wanted to do my own thing. The reason I came to Scotland in the first place, I'm a guy who loves to dip my hands in various things. I like creative challenges, and that's the reason I decided to set up my own studio. So in 2021, I set up Studio Dhavall Gandhi, and the idea is to work into a lot of technical maturation, stock transformation works, doing quite strategic work that is not completely some projects can be very impactful right now, and some are very, very long. Some of the work that I'm doing, it will impact in the next 10 years. How the casks are going to work, when the shortage of wood. And that there was also this artistic side that I wanted to explore more, explore how can we take the world we love about whiskey and into an artistic realm. How can I find convergence between philosophy, art, and whiskey? And that's when I decided to set up this unique space called Kandoblanc. And Kandoblanc is about duality in everything. It's about duality in whiskey, duality in philosophy, duality in art. So that's what I started in 2022. So yeah, so I've been working on that project.
It's so cool to see that. But before we get into that, Dhavall, I want to rewind a little bit, because where we first met was when you were the Lakes Distillery. I don't know if you remember that. I came down for lunch. We were sitting having lunch.
Probably a free lunch. He was asking for a free lunch.
But then, you came out, you met us, and there was going to be a 5-minute chat, which turned into us staying there for about an hour. You taking us around the distillery, taking us into your blending lab up there, which was incredible. So, I really want to get into everything that you're doing right now. But if we rewind to when you were looking after the Lakes, what was the kind of big learnings that you got from that? Because I remember you were talking to me about doing some really sort of progressive stuff there. You were working with different yeast strains. I loved now remind me what you called it again, but it was when you were bringing the ABV down in the cask, you do it very slowly. And your analogy
slow
was
reduction.
Slow reduction. Yeah. That analogy you had, which was, imagine being woken up by someone throwing a bucket of water over you. That's exactly what happens when you reduce really quickly, whereas you went down this process. So let's chat about some of those before we get onto your stuff, if you don't mind. So what did you do when you were at the Lakes? What did you learn there?
See, I think the lakes was my area where I could put into practice things that I have been thinking about, things I've been working on. And this process was not something that started when I was at Lakes. Like everything, things start, the idea, the spark happens long time before you actually put into practice. It was actually at Macallan when I was studying and working there. And that's when I started thinking about, okay, how can we approach things very differently? Usually the way we see about go about a whiskey process, we start with, a malted barley coming through, and then we talk about fermentation, we talk about, distillation, cut points, and then we find out, okay, what is the wood policy or the cask policy of a space, and then we try to play around with different oaks. What I wanted to do before I went to Lakes, and I had this period of thinking, I wanted to turn it around. Okay, why go opposite? Let's look at it from the other side. I wanted to create a very specific type of whiskey profile, a specific type of whiskey character. And then, okay, what do I require for that whiskey character? And I knew from my maturation work, these are the types, these are the oaks, these are the wines that I require to create those characters. And then I designed the new make spirit based on what my requirements for the cask are, because new make spirit and having the right congeners would allow me to create those flavors in the long run. So then I designed the new make spirit to fit my cask profile, which was designed to fit the final outcome that I wanted. And that's how I created the new make spirit, and the cut points, the fermentation, the yeast that I use, everything was designed for the final stage of maturation. So think about this. When I, set up all the processes at Lakes, it was as if a blender coming in and designing a distillery as a blender, not as a distiller. So that was, I think, my biggest learning. And for me, I think it worked. It helped me achieve the vision that I had. It helped me achieve the goal that I had. Now, am I saying that's the best way to do it, or the other way is the better process? No, I think it's all up to personal interpretation. But what I wanted to create, that worked for me. So it was looking at the whole whiskey process from a holistic perspective. So looking at it, not like, okay, I have this spirit, now let me find casks that will work with it. No, this is the spirit I want. These are the casks that are going to give me the spirit. This is the new make that I want for that cask. And these are the yeast and the barley that I need to focus on the cask. Now, one of the things that I learned also is that you don't have to optimize or over-optimize every single part of the process, right? And this is something because my love for my cars and motorcycles, something very simple. If you look at great American cars, right, they can be heavy, but they have big V8 engines, V12 engines, classic American cars, right? Beautiful, they can go fast, heavy engines. Then you have on the other side of the spectrum, you have Japanese cars, right? Quite lighter aluminum bodies, smaller engines, but they can also go on track very nicely, and you can have fun with them. And then you can have something European cars, which uses a turbocharger or a supercharger. You are meeting those objectives, but you're using different ways to achieve that objective. And that's the same concept that I applied to making whiskey. And I only focus on things that I wanted to focus. So there was no need for us to worry about malted barley, or whether, I wanted a consistent barley so I can create a consistent new make spirit. For me, the distillation process had to be super consistent, because all the magic I wanted to create, I could create that through cask and blending. I didn't need to worry about that.
I think it's really unique, isn't it, Dhavall? Because most master blenders don't get to do that. Most master blenders are coming into a space that already exists. Someone's, for 150 years, someone has decided what the spirit was going to taste like, and they've not changed it. So they're then having to manipulate that spirit using wood to try to get to the flavor that they want to, rather than design the spirit, which is going to produce the flavors using the oak that you've predetermined is going to get you to the final outcome. So from your standpoint, you really got to see it from soup to nuts. You got to see it right the way through and design almost like with as much expert knowledge as we now have in that craft of what the interaction between spirit and wood is going to do. You got to say, well, if I want to get to this flavor, this is how I need to do it, starting with the grain, the yeast, the distillation, right through to maturation, where most master blenders don't get that input. They walk into the space. Here's what's sitting in wood. Good luck blending it. Here's the flavor we're looking for.
Absolutely. And I think I would say I was fortunate to be in that position, but I think that was the very thing that attracted me to lakes. It was this opportunity to completely test my ideas or test what I believed in to create style. And then I think, Mitch, the second point was understanding what is a contemporary flavor profile look like, right? Now we're trying to create a sherry-led single malt, but how does the contemporary flavor look like? Does it have to be dry? Does it have to be spicy? Can it be a little bit on the sweeter side? Can it be have more complexity? So that was something that I tested through various editions, various things, and it's a learning process. I'm still learning. I think at least after spending so much time at Macallan and Lakes, I'm still finding out how many things I don't know. So
on that note about you still learning, obviously behind Mitch and I, there's a wall filled with whiskey. Behind you, there is a room filled with books. Can you explain to Mitch what a book is? Have you seen one of these, mate? Have you ever?
Just ones with pictures, man.
Yeah, okay.
That's the ones I like.
So are those the same for you? I mean, I actually can see some that I've got here on my bookshelf next to me as well. We have different wine books and things like that as well. Is it? Are you just do you just geek out on that side of flavor and how flavors are created, and that's whether it's food or whether it's wine or whether it's whiskey?
Yeah, I think I love books and I love whiskey. And I think let me say to the listeners who can't see the other side of the room and my living room, I have probably 10 times more whiskey in the house. But I'm a whiskey geek first and a whiskey blender second. I think that's absolutely how I approach my work. With the books, I love reading, but something people who know me, that I dip in and out of different things. I'm reading 2 or 3 different books at the same time, but it's not about whiskey. I read philosophy, Asian philosophy. I'm into poetry. I'm reading technical literature about whiskey or winemaking. And I think that's the beauty, and that's how it goes back to Kandoblanc as well. Because even if you look at Lakes or Kandoblanc, what I've done is, Mitch, you were mentioning about the slow reduction process, right? There is the élevage technique from cognac makers that I sort of practice with different areas that I work right now. And the reason for that is you have to have space and time and the opportunity to let creative influences come in from different areas. Okay, that's my style. If you ask me, okay, Dhavall, what's your house style? My style is that I don't have a style. Because it allows me to play and tap into different ideas. Sometimes if you look at my books here, some are psychology, some are branding, some are about Asian philosophy, but everything gives you some kind of a different perspective of looking at things. And that's probably what I also applied at Lakes, through winemaking, or if I'll be traveling somewhere and I saw something in making how they make earthenware using different clay, and each clay they used because they had a different flavor and texture for the water coming out. So that allowed me to also trial different things in yeast and trying to look at how the fermentation process works with different containers. So again, it's a never-ending thing. You constantly find new things,
which is great to see. And as soon as you released Kandoblanc, I could see that with everything that you put out with regards to what's happening here. So for people that are listening that might not have seen Kandoblanc, can you explain the name, the whole concept behind it? Because it's quite a detailed description. When I was reading it, Dhavall, I was pretty impressed, actually. There's a lot of big words in there that I didn't understand as well.
So, Dhavall, if you've got finger puppets that you want to use
Finger
to help
puppet,
Mitch understand, that also goes a long way.
Pictures, like matchstick men, preferably. That would be good.
Just a sock puppet, something like that. You'll pay more attention.
Yeah, see, Mitch, you and I have shared, many dinners and drinks together, and I'm quite philosophical. I love philosophy, and especially I dip into a lot of Asian philosophy.
Yeah.
And Kandoblanc, okay, let's talk about that. It exists in a very unique space, and it's a convergence of art, philosophy, and whiskey. Those three things kind of coming together to create a space where you can create amazing whiskeys, you can create amazing objects that are much more deeper than just liquid or just packaging or just a bottle. And what I mean by that is, whether it's you take whiskey or any object, the meaning changes over time. Whether you have a small pen or you have a whiskey, the whiskey that I loved probably 10 years ago, and if I try those whiskeys again, I have a different meaning, different interpretation of those flavors, those characters. Same thing happens with books. Same thing happens with objects. So my idea was to create this space where I can bring art and creative influences from around the world into our space of whiskey that we all love. And that's what Kandoblanc is all about. Now, I'll tell you about the word Kando and Blanc, right? So one word, if you can take away from today, is duality. So Kandoblanc, everything about Kandoblanc is about duality. When two or more things, ideas, objects, interpretations come together to create something that is bigger than the sum of its parts. And that is the very essence of Kandoblanc, duality. Now, if you look at the word Kando and Blanc, so Kando is a Japanese word. So whenever we see something of immense beauty or something that is beautifully designed and it stirs your heart, that stirring of emotion, that emotion that stirs your heart, that feeling is called Kando in Japanese. There's no literal translation. And Blanc is also the French word for white, but in Asian philosophy, white is considered a color of artistic transcendence. So that's why Kando and Blanc. So every time you see about Kandoblanc, there will be two things that are playing together, a convergence, a confluence of those two things. That's why the name Kando and Blanc. Now let's talk about the object that we created. So for the first object, Aga, I decided to take inspiration from Italy and Japan. So if you look at the object, the battuto technique, which is an Italian technique, master craftsman technique, and it takes 20, 30 years to even master that technique, to hand blow that glass and then create hand scales that give you the scaled effect on the bottle. And then we have the Japanese inspired aesthetics. If you look at the whole Aga bottle, it's very Japanese. The angles, the way it looks like a samurai hat with the clothing, the cloak, a cloak of a Zen monk, and there's a kintsugi in it. The reason kintsugi is there, because that is the philosophy that we want to celebrate. It's about human imperfections. You start with the whiskey that we all love. Whiskey also has its own imperfections. It is the imperfections through congeners, it's imperfections through the chemical reactions that give it flavor, right? If you were trying to create the most perfect congener-free profile, it would taste like vodka. So we love whiskey because of its congener profiles, because of its imperfections. That is what makes it unique. The same process in the object creation is hand-blown. It's completely hand-blown. There's a feeling of something made by hand, and that comes through very lively in the Kandoblanc object.
And just so, am I right in saying that Kandoblanc, everything's going to be bespoke one-offs? I know this one that you've just released as we're talking right now, that's going to go to one of one. the auction for Sotheby's that's coming up in just under a week. And I want to chat to you about that. But progressing forward on the bottlings that you're going to do, are they all going to be one-offs? And can you talk a little bit about the liquid as well that's going to go to the auction bottle?
Absolutely. So I think let's talk about the liquid first. That's going into the Sotheby's and Distillers 101 auction. And then we can talk more about what's happening with the Kandoblanc. So liquid is absolutely the notion of duality also exists and transcends through the liquid itself. And liquid is a combination of two single cask whiskies from Speyside and Highland, both distilled in 1979 and to be bottled in 2023. And I have tried to put together to create this amazing texture, but tropical fruit goodness, I would call it. And one is a Speysider in refill bourbon that gives you pineapple, melons, kiwi, some beautiful tropical fruit notes, and an elegant, smooth, silky finish. And the other one, which is Highlander, which is quite opposite. It is big, it has a poise, it has structure, it has a waxy texture to it. And also it gives you, because it's in a refill hogshead, it gives you this gentle spice character that I truly prize. So think about this as a tropical fruit salad with a bit of gentle spice, a little bit of nutmeg, cinnamon, vanilla. So that's how it tastes like. And again, there's a reason I wanted to have two polar opposite things playing together to create something beautiful. It's not about just the design, okay? Kandoblanc is not a design agency or someone who designs beautiful bottles, or it's not about just a whiskey independent bottling that just focuses on the liquid. The focus is more holistic. What happens when you look at the end-to-end process? Every single thing from the creation of the object to the creation of the liquid to the creation of the concept that flows together. So that is what Kandoblanc's Aga is. And Aga is very philosophical. It's also named after my son. Aga means mountain in Sanskrit language. But philosophically, it's also the place where the spiritual world meets the material world. So earth and sky meet together on a mountain. That's philosophical.
Dhavall, this is like you've taken what you did at Lakes and juiced it to the nines, where you're now no longer just seeing from distillation to full maturation in the finished liquid. Now you're looking at every single element that touches what it is when someone experiences your whiskey, right? So it's that moment of understanding the background and the stories and why you have chosen each of the elements, whether it's the packaging choice, because most whiskey companies don't do that.
Do you know what it is? It's like that scene in The Matrix, Dhavall, where he becomes one and he starts to see everything,
Are you Neo, Dhavall? Is that what this is? Are you Neo? Is this us getting an exclusive? Did you take the blue pill?
One of the things that's very important to me, and it's important to Kandoblanc going forwards, is also the art. And every great art requires a patron. And there are a lot of amazing artisans around the world. And we are losing a lot of craftsmanship, a lot of different traditional ethnic arts, because people are no longer interested or people are no longer aware about them. Okay, we are into this fast, molded fashion things that we tend to forget. And I think it is our responsibility to promote those art. And I think through Kandoblanc as a platform, what I want to do is work with some of those artists around the world. And it takes, so for example, let's take Aga, right? To create a hand-blown glass, everything is hand-blown. There is no mold use in entire Aga process. The master glass maker has over 38 years of experience to make that. Now, if I don't promote that, if I don't work with those master craft makers, we are not giving the younger generation the opportunity to come into those arts and spend the next decade or two learning the craft. Otherwise, those crafts are going to wither away. They're going to go away. So with Kandoblanc, my vision is to work with different artists, different philosophers, makers, artisans around the world, and promote those crafts and preserve those crafts in every small way we can do. Okay, so I think that takes you to your question about, is that going to be always one-off? No, I never say. We'll see, what happens. Sometimes there can be multiple objects, sometimes there can be one, but we are already working on two special order commissions for two of our clients, and they're completely very artistic but very different, because this is about, Kandoblanc is about what matters to you, what is your aesthetic language, rather than us. Yes, so some people might be interested in Eastern philosophy, some might be interested in South American art, so we will try to interpret those arts and bring it into life through whiskey as well.
So 5 years from now, Dhavall, what does Kandoblanc look like?
Kandoblanc will be still creating unique objects, and by that time I think we would have created some kind of impact in the wider community from an artistic perspective. We would have helped promote certain arts and crafts, and it is my hope and my dream that by promoting those dying crafts, maybe if there are one or two young individuals who would be interested in learning more about those art and dedicating their next 10, 20 years to creating those art, I think that would be, considered as my job done from what I wanted to achieve. So I think it's more about impact as well, but it's also about art, right? Art needs to create an emotional impact, okay? It needs to move you. And anything that moves you, this is not for everyone, okay? It's probably the clients or the patrons of Kandoblanc are people who act on an emotional level. And, for them, art is important as much as whiskey is important. Both go hand in hand. But this is the time where we bring different elements to our world of whiskey.
And then if people want to see more of Kandoblanc and find out about it, where can they go? What can they do?
I think, first of all, I would highly recommend, if you have not done yet, there is this amazing article written by Dave that was just published 2 days ago.
Dave Broom?
And it's on Dave Broom on Sotheby's, and it tells you about the very essence of Kandoblanc. What is it? Why does it exist? And what is it trying to do? I think please have a look at it. And again, Mitch, I'm a very private guy. I don't share too many things. But if you want to know more about Kandoblanc, just Instagram is one place where you can keep an eye out. But what we are trying to do is have impact from an artistic perspective. So watch this space. There will be more things coming through.
Well, Dhavall, thank you so much for joining us for 30 minutes with. This has been really insightful. I've had a blast meeting you and learning a ton about what you're doing. I think it's really exciting, and I think I think Kandoblanc adds a huge value to understanding craftsmanship and beauty and art and the essence of duality. And I think that it's been great to hear that come straight from your lips to our listeners' ears.
Absolutely. And I look forward to catching up soon, mate. We need to go for a beer.
And
absolutely.
I am also shocked that Mitch has not taken this opportunity to ask for samples yet. So,
oh, did I not tell you? You sent me some.
That's it. The running joke here, Dhavall, is that I don't get to taste anything because all the samples are sent to Mitch in Scotland.
I'll say one for you when you come, Nicholas.
Wonderful, sir. I appreciate that. Well, thanks for being a guest, and looking forward to seeing what happens in the future. Cheers.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.